So, 2 months ago, we got invited to South Korea to attend the Nowit's Indie Quest ceremony, a competition for indie games in development that excel in narrative and world building. And somehow, we won first place. We walked away with $70,000, and I thought to myself, why don't we make a devlog about writing? So let's talk about it. What makes a great RPG? I'd say agency, reactivity, and freedom of approach. Although none of those elements alone would ever be enough to justify a player's total investment. Time is the most valuable currency we have, and if games like Arcanum, Planescape Torment, and Pathologic understood one thing, it's that the players will only value the time they spend in your game if its world is one they genuinely care about. A world worth making choices in, worth fighting for, worth living in. Because the greatest RPGs don't just give you decisions, they make those decisions matter. In Planescape Torment, every conversation feels like you're uncovering another piece of yourself. In Arcanum, every quest reminds you that progress, tradition, and ideology are constantly colliding, and nearly every system reinforces the central conflict between magic and industrial progress. And in Pathologic, the world itself is so style, strange, and believable that every loaf of bread, every friendship, every hour that passes suddenly carries weight. The common thread between these games isn't the size of their maps or the number of dialogue options. It's that they create worlds with values, conflicts, and consequences. Worlds that can exist without the player but become profoundly different because of them. And once players start caring about a world like that, every choice stops being a mechanic and becomes something much more powerful, a responsibility. Now, with our game, its ambitions, and a very clear awareness of our limitation, like the complete absence of a budget, we adopted a bottom-up world-building approach. We started from small, local, deeply personal details, like the life of an ordinary worker living in an apartment block during a lockdown. We began with the character first, his impulses, his desires, and his emotional inertia, and only then gradually expanded outward into a larger world, but always from the same perspective, someone looking out through a window trying to make sense of what they can barely reach. So in GLASSHOUSE, we chose to make Will Meyer the protagonist, a mediocre, unremarkable 40-year-old man suddenly thrown into a world that waits for no one, a world standing on the edge of a global war, quietly writing the final paragraphs of its own history. And as the fires of conflict draw closer outside his window, the player, literally taking the form of a cancer, begins to spread inside Will Meyer's body, a slow, invasive awakening that gives him something he hasn't had in years: momentum, urgency, and the hope that he might still leave a mark on a story that is already ending. And with only 360 days left to live, every decision's become a question of legacy. For 6 years, we have been building a world defined by its own rules, tradition, literary genres, and political factions. Inspired by Abdullah Öcalan's manifesto on democratic confederalism, we grounded our setting in real political theory to imagine a world without states or nations. A decentralized, deglobalized geopolitical landscape where technological progress and economic growth are often sacrificed in favor of rights, equality, and public services. This is Feudalpunk, a world where armored knights carry rifles and radios, farmers build settlements in the shadow of abandoned factories, and workers protest in the squares of industrial cities that blend medieval and Victorian architecture, now rebranded as feudal republics. Only after carefully constructing this grounded historical framework from the bottom up did we return to the player and their agency, designing dialogue choices with real impact, quests with multiple solutions, and characters that react based on ideology, internal conflict, and believable motivations. In our ideal RPG, narrative and gameplay are not separate systems, they serve each other. And that is exactly why we created the Political Compass, a non-traditional class and progression system that replaces stats like strength and dexterity with combinable political ideologies, shaping not just what the player can do, but how they think, speak, and act in the world. Now, you might ask, what does 4 years into GLASSHOUSE development looks like? Well, back in 2022, when development first started, this was where we were with the prototype, and now we're here. Still without a publisher, yes, but with all core gameplay system implemented, roughly 40% of the campaign in place, around 60% of the script written, and 3 public playtests completed by over 5,000 players. Also, according to our Google Form feedback, the game currently holds in its pre-alpha state an overall score of 4.3 out of 5, which is not bad at all. And while building a game entirely in our spare time has been slow, we finally reached a point where progress feels different, faster, more tangible, the space to breathe now, to actually look at what we have built and appreciate it before moving forward. But it's not all smooth sailing. And since this devlog is focused on writing, I want to take a step back and reflect on what didn't work for us, on the internal demons we had to recognize along the way and how we dealt with them before they could turn into real bottlenecks in development. So every day I wake up, check the local political situation, scroll to Twitter, read a book, and then I open Archive. I've read dialogue, connect nodes, regret everything, then rewrite it, again and again. I open Discord and discover the other writer has no idea about what I wrote, so I need to update the documentation. Then it's more documentation. I talk to artists about what should be written on street signs, check architectural consistency, and more documentation. Game Bible documentation, preparing scripts for voice actors, updating the glossary, and since I'm already there, I might as well update the GDD too. Then it's back to writing. Maybe I watch a TV show, which immediately gives me another idea to jot down, then planning for the other departments, more documentation, playtesting, proofreading, and somehow even more documentation. So this is the best case scenario, but it wasn't always like this. Writing is one of the most personal forms of art, especially in indie development where the original idea often starts with you. And that's exactly how you end up trapped in a conflict between yourself, your message, your abilities, and your players. Writing is ultimately a matter of balance, and the first step is recognizing the uncomfortable truth. You're making a video game, and at the end of the day, you're making it for other people. People who don't know you, don't share your references, and can't read your mind. The same goes for the people you work with. Look, during the first 2 years of development, I wrote hundreds of pages of essays, scripts and lore, thousands of cryptic concepts, vaguely defined rules, and made-up terminology that only I could understand. Everything existed inside my head in what I thought was perfect order. This is probably one of the easiest traps for game developers to fall into. If I misunderstand something, everyone misunderstands it. If I get stuck, everyone gets stuck. The only way to prevent bottlenecks is to stay organized, stay deliberate, and above all, learn how to delegate. Unfortunately, I learned this lesson pretty late. By then, 70,000 words had already been written, artists were constantly misinterpreting things, and perhaps most importantly, a second writer had joined the team. Please, make spreadsheets. Write a clear game bible without unnecessary prose. Build a glossary that everyone can easily navigate, and almost magically, everything starts moving faster. Because if writing is already chaotic enough, the least you can do is give your brain some relief with a good set of rules. Look, you don't need to be the sacrificial hero, and frankly, nobody asked you to be. And more often than not, it only leads to worse work. Take line editing, for example. Delegate it to someone else. That way you can spend more time on narrative review. Then do the same with everything else you reasonably can. Coherence is why your word makes sense, consistency is why your audience trusts it. And I'll die on this hill. I genuinely believe that only after you learn to trust other people are you truly ready to write for other people. To build quests where choices actually carry weight. Words where you can loosen your grip a little and make things less rigid and more non-linear. Because you trust the player, because at that point you trust yourself a little more too, and you know that whatever they choose to do, it's still going to feel like a real RPG experience. Fucking hell, that was tough. So, to wrap up today's video, I want to give you a quick update on the road ahead. With the Now It's Prize, we're going to incorporate and finally start doing things seriously. We are currently working on a Kickstarter campaign, the first official Steam demo, feature complete with partial voice acting and over 2 hours of content, and we're also planning to attend Gamescom 2026. It's a strange feeling. After 4 years, it finally feels like things are moving in the right direction. Yes, we are painfully slow, but with consistency, we're getting there. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk, and I'll see you in the next devlog.